some girls, and it was some party. Margaret Trudeau passed up her wedding anniversary to come. Some of the top models were there, along with the society of the frenetic rock world. Judy Welch owns a modeling agency in Toronto.
And they approached me and asked me if I wouldn't mind hostessing a party for the Rolling Stones. And I said, yes, who are the Rolling Stones?
February 27th, the Mounties raided Toronto's Harbour Castle Hilton Hotel. They had found traces of heroin on a spoon taken from Richard's girlfriend at the airport, and they were coming to get her. The Mounties knew that both she and Richards had been in trouble for using heroin before. Judy Welch heard what happened.
From what I had understood, what they did find wasn't near Keith's room at all, but he was 3 rooms down. And it was found in a washroom that was very close to the hallway, that was in an open room, which was a hospitality room, which everyone was coming and going.
A year and a half after he'd been charged, and after he had pleaded guilty to possession of heroin, Richards came to the court in Toronto's Old City Hall to be sentenced. Now it was serious business, and reporters came from all over the world to see if Richards would go to jail. Judge Lloyd Grayburn decided that the guitar player should not be imprisoned, but instead continue treatment for his addiction, and so he sentenced Richards to a year's probation. But Judge Grayburn frequently orders community service as well, and so he told Richards to give a concert for the blind in Toronto within 6 months.
I feel very good about it, obviously, I think it's fair, slightly strange.
For Rita Bedard, who despite her blindness rode the bus from Montreal to Toronto to sit in court every time Richard's case came up, the sentence was fantastic.
And we can't stand in line and wait for tickets as anybody else. And we also love music, and we don't have the opportunity to rock and roll like everybody else. And I was so glad to hear that, you know, that we will have a concert just for us, you know.
Beyond CNIB, the public seemed upset, demanded an appeal aimed at getting a jail sentence for Richards.
Should give immediate consideration to appealing the preposterous and more than lenient suspended sentence imposed yesterday in Toronto on Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
Editors and politicians were swamped with complaints that the sentence was too soft. But few considered that our courts long ago decided that for heroin addicts, treatment is often better than punishment in prison. Over the last 5 years, only half of those convicted have gone to jail, and half of those for only short periods. Federal prosecutors in Toronto who were handling the case had no propensity to appeal what, apart from the concert, was a fairly standard sentence. But then, although drugs are federal business, Ontario Attorney General Roy McMurtry got into the act and helped convince Ottawa to appeal for a stiffer sentence, 6 months to a year in jail. But McMurtry denies public pressure made him do it.
The number of calls or letters we received, all I can do is repeat what I said earlier. It really didn't have any influence on us.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The public outcry was no surprise. It seemed that Richards was getting off with a night's work. But on the other hand, the value of that concert, seen as a fine, would be upwards of $250,000. However, McMurtry was worried about the deterrent because he says a celebrity must set an example. And if he doesn't, stiffer sentences might well be the price of fame.
And there's no question but the deterrent aspect has to be given greater weight with an individual of that status.
Does that mean that rock stars have to have higher moral standards than anyone else in the community?
Not at all. Not at all.
But he can expect to be dealt with more severely when he transgresses.
No, not necessarily. But I think any public figure, whether they're a rock star or a politician, can expect that when a court imposes a sentence, that their status in the community will be a factor. Not necessarily a governing factor, but a factor that the court will take into consideration.
etc.
While it waits for the appeal, the CNIB is trying to forget about rock concerts and do what it does best: provide services for Canada's